If you ever find yourself stuck in the middle of the sea, I'll sail the world to find you. If you ever find yourself lost in the dark and you can't see, I'll be the light to guide you. Find out what we're made of. We are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. Ooh, yeah, yeah. If you're tossing and you're turning and you just can't fall asleep, I'll sing a song beside you. And if you ever forget how much you really mean to me, every day I will remind you. Oh, find out what we're made of. When we are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. Ooh, yeah, yeah. You'll always have my shoulder when you cry. I'll never let go, never say goodbye. Can't count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, and you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. Ooh, ooh, you can count on me 'cause I can count on you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is 7 o'clock on the dot Central Time. So we are going to go ahead and get started. Hope you enjoyed the positivity, smooth sounds, Bruno Mars. Listen, thanks so much for joining us this evening on a Friday evening, no less. Man, we really appreciate you just tuning in with us. Hope that we didn't interrupt your virtual happy hour. But if we did, my advice to you is just keep it rolling. We would just ask for no drunk chatting. But seriously, really appreciative of the response we've gotten. Real quick, just want to draw your attention to our disclaimer at the top of the chat. And really, we just want you to know that the thoughts, ideas, opinions are mine alone and not intended to be any kind of authority for you. This was really just born out of a passion for football and the role that we play in the game, and a passion for helping to grow the collective capacity of officials wherever we can, ourselves included, and then obviously others too. And then with the events around the world, it just felt like a great time for us to dive in head first. So we hope that throughout these sessions, you're getting something of value, something that can improve your practice, grow you as an official. But if all we're doing is giving you the opportunity to break away from what's going on and talk football, then it's well worth it in our minds. So just wanted to communicate that to you. Really quickly, administratively, just want to give you a heads up that we're continually adding sessions about different topics. So please make sure that you're checking the website on a regular basis. We're going to take tomorrow off, be back Sunday at noon Central Time. And Brandon Cruz is going to take us through another video-based rule session. Promises to be amazing. So tune in for that. Real quick, let me introduce myself. Good chance a lot of you don't know who I am. My name is Daniel Young. Excuse me. Work as a back judge in the Big 12 Conference. Done that the last 4 years. Spent time in the Mountain West Southland and Texas high school football before that. Have only worked back judge throughout my career, good, bad, or indifferent. That's just the way it's gone. I live over here in Northeast Houston in a community called Kingwood. Also want to let you know that I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I only mention that to let you know that if you hear blood-curdling screaming coming through your computer, there's no crime being committed, no violent acts. Well, I mean, there may be brother on sister violence, but nothing that you need to be alarmed about. That's just what's going on here. Got them hopefully contained, but just wanted to give you that heads up. Okay, let's talk about what we're going to get into tonight and and why we're doing it. What we're going to spend our time talking about and what we want to grow through is the idea of working run plays as deep officials, and specifically that through the evolution of a play, we're looking at the right thing at the right point in time. And so if you just boil that down, really what we're talking about is visual mechanics, right? Just again, picking the correct threat in our area of responsibility and officiating that. I wanted to talk about this because well, listen, I work in education, and there's a guy that wrote a book. His name's John Hattie. The book is Visible Learning, and the book is about effect size of the different factors of the learning process, right? So all that means are if we manipulate this component of the learning process, it will contribute. If we manipulate it good, it'll provide the most bang for our buck in terms of learning. And if we manipulate it negatively, then we'll restrict learning mostly. And so in my mind, when we talk about officiating, there's no factor that has greater effect size than if we're looking at the right place at the right time. Our opportunity or percentages for success go way, way up. If we're looking at the wrong thing anytime during the play, then really we're relying on chance or blind luck and getting it right. And, longitudinally, that's going to be a problem for us. And then the other reason I think this is relevant and I wanted to get into it was, as deep officials, we're just continually looking for ways to contribute to the betterment of the crew and get involved in things where maybe there was a time we could just kind of sit back and adopt an attitude of, well, I'm way off that, or that's not mine. And really what we want to do is foster this mentality of let's contribute to the crew officiating the play at a really, really high rate, play in, play out. And I think that part, part of how we do that is being really effective in the back end on the run game. Okay, so with that, let's get into some plays. Okay, so for our first play, we're going to go through a little bit more of a deliberate process, examining the alignment in our pre-snap process. So it'll go a little bit slowly, but hang in there with me. I think there's value in what we're doing, and then we won't do this for the following plays. But again, I think there's value here. Let me explain why. When we officiate a play, in my mind, what we're working to accomplish ultimately is two things, and that's looking in the right place at the right time. And that's what we're talking about tonight. And then making the correct decision once we get there visually. So what's happening is our brain is getting all of these inputs, right? Processing just an inordinate amount of information to help us decide what to do. Well, that's a process from input or information into decision-making or recognition about what to do next. And if we can leverage some things before the ball's ever snapped to help us get into a mental space pre-snap that will lead us down a more efficient recognition and decision-making process throughout the course of the play, I think we're going to have better results. We're talking about really thin margins in regards to time, but a football play happens incredibly fast. And if you separate it into elements, then they're happening, almost in the blink of an eye. So if we can use information before we get into that everything happening so fast, then what I believe is we can create a more efficient process from information in to decision made and compress that window. And that by compressing that window, we will be able to maybe get our eyes where they're supposed to be just a touch sooner, which will then maybe allow us to see more of a given action, which will then lead us to making a more informed decision, or at least a decision with even more confidence because we saw more of the action. So again, it's about processing the inputs, to compressing the decision-making process, to getting our eyes where they're supposed to be a fraction of second quicker, which allows us to see a little bit more of the action, which allows us to make a more informed decision. And that's kind of the flow chart for why I think that this is a beneficial exercise for us. So the first thing we're going to notice, well, let me start by saying we've got side judge and headline judge down here at the bottom. Line judge and field judge are up here at the top, of course. And one of the first thing we'll notice, starting with the side judge, is that we don't have an initial key as an eligible receiver. And let me just pause very quickly and echo what Tuta talked to us about in our initial, our first session last Sunday afternoon. Made a great point about us collectively moving away from the language of just key, which kind of communicates that we're officiating a guy throughout the course of a play. And of course, we know that that's not reflective of what we do, right? The play's dynamic, so what we're officiating has to be dynamic and changes oftentimes as the play evolves. Not all the time, but most of the time. Whereas initial key communicates that we have a person we're going to start officiating, and then that's going to change as different things happen in our area of responsibility. So again, just wanted to echo that. I thought that was really good insight from Tuta. So again, no initial key as an eligible receiver. And so what the side judge needs to make sure that they don't do is allow that to kind of lull them into a relaxed state, but rather and just kind of wait for something to happen. But rather what the side judge wants to do is get really active kind of thought process going right now. And that starts with looking into this left tackle. And if we want to be very detailed, looking into the left hip and left foot of the tackle, because this is going to be an indicator that could tell us potentially what play is happening. Because if he opens up his left hip and post steps, which is just kind of stepping back, that's going to be an indicator that he's going into pass protection and a pass play is coming. So now with that information, we can start down that road of what are the things we need to process to officiate a pass play. And that could be knowing that we have a fullback, could run a flare, or either one of these guys could come out here and run a wheel route. We'd have some deep drags over here, a post that could end up in our lap. So who knows? But by being ready and thinking about that as a potential, when he does do that post step, I've put myself again in a great place cognitively to start down that road towards a more efficient decision-making process. Whereas if the tackle fires out and starts the block, he's communicating to me that it's a run play, and I can start thinking about those things again from the side judge perspective. Now, let me give this quick disclaimer, because we all know as deep officials, the RPO is our favorite thing. That's being sarcastic. Don't like it at all. So my point is that the disclaimer, rather, is that we're going to use this information to leverage us down a thought pathway that could benefit us all the while, understanding that there's a very good possibility that we'll have to adapt in the middle of the play. And that's okay. We just need to understand that that's a possibility and get used to practicing that kind of cognitive flexibility, and just get in that habit. But a lot of times it won't. It'll be what's presented, and then those times when it's not, we just got to be ready for that and willing to adapt, or not. Maybe not willing. Of course we're willing, but ready to adapt. Okay, so again, if he fires out, he's going to communicate run play, and that's where the side judge is to start the play. Okay, so let's look up here at the top of the screen. We've got this trip set. And so we know that with the trips, the back judge is going to start on the tight end. And then the line judge will have the number 2 receiver. And then our field judge, of course, will have number 1. Let's talk about the back judge, because there's some information here for him that can, again, shrink that processing window. We know that when we have a tight end, well, anytime we have a tight end, whether our secondary key is over here with the line judge or over here, we know that if the tight end does our little post step thing like we talked about with the tackle and blocks, stays in the pass protect, that we're going to immediately get off of him and switch keys, whether that's, in this case, it would be with the line judge. However, one of the things I'm going to be able to notice as a back judge in this pre-snap alignment is that my tight end is covered up, and it's going to be really clear to me in this scenario because my number 1 receiver has his foot on this big line on the 40-yard line. And then the number 2 receiver is a full yard in front of that, leaning over on top of this tick mark. So I know he's covering up my tight end. And so that's just a real small piece of information that equates to a real small piece of time. But again, I really believe that by knowing that, I'm in a better position mentally to react to this post step, because in my mind, I'm already thinking he's not going out for a pass. He's either going to run block or pass block. And if he ends up going out for a pass, maybe I can help out. If he goes out for a pass, help the line judge or headline judge or umpire with their work also. Okay, so again, just a little piece of information to help me decide. If he comes out here and runs blocks, that's going to communicate to me as a back judge. We've got a run play coming. Again, like the side judge, I'm going to start going down that thought process, that thought pathway. Let's talk very briefly about the field judge. Field judge is in a situation where his initial offensive key has 10 yards of space between his defender key. That's good to know, because what that means is I've got a nice time cushion before my offensive initial key is going to be threatened for a foul. Now, we can make up 10 yards really fast, but in regards to the lifespan of a play, this is a nice cushion that's going to allow the field judge to come in here and peek inside at the back judge's tight end and use that same process about the post step or him run blocking to communicate to him what kind of play is coming up. Okay, so those are, again, those pre-snap things that can help us anticipate what's going to come next. And I want to make sure we understand that anticipation is a positive tool for us as officials. We want to be able to anticipate action. What we don't want to do, of course, is assume action, but rather anticipate and shorten that window and then respond appropriately when something else happens by just having that flexibility. Okay, so let's let the play run and see what happens. Wrong button, sorry. All right, so immediately the side judge's, this tackle the side judge was looking through has come out and blocked right here. The tight end that the back judge and field judge were looking through has come out and blocked. So as a side judge, very comfortable officiating this action right now. I don't have to use it just as an indicator of what kind of play is coming. We know that this is the center judge key and where his eyes should be at this point. However, it's okay as a side judge to be helping out here. You know, maybe we'll see something he doesn't. Maybe he's in the wrong place visually and I can help save the crew. But right now, we're okay at this point in the play officiating this action. Field judge can absolutely just kind of sit down here with this big space and this indicator of a run play. Now let's go forward in the play a few more seconds. And so now what's happened is that the side judge has probably, if not seen, certainly sensed this big hole that the fullback is running through. to come and block this defender. So if the side judge is still on this action right here, he's just about a nanosecond away from transitioning to this fullback, because we can see this block setting up. And like my good friend likes to say, it's not going to take a lot of mental gymnastics for him to make this transition. This is going to be a pretty intuitive switch for him. It's going to be the most relevant block, as our ball carrier is following behind the fullback. And it's also the widest one. So that works out well for the side judge. As a back judge, what I have started to feel, if not see, is the pressure from the offensive line start to come down to my right middle, the left middle from the offense. So that's communicating to me that the run play is designed to come out in this space, if not all the way to the boundary. So I'm still on this block right here with a feeling that the play is going to come this way. And if he busts it, I'm going to try and find a block from the inside out. We'll talk about that later in front of the ball carrier. Okay, so now the play's developed. The side judge's block has meshed up just like we anticipated. As a back judge, now I'm looking for a way to get off of this tight end block, as I can feel, if not see out of my peripheral, the ball carrier breaking through this hole and this block becoming less and less relevant. That could be probably just checking this out to see what's going to happen. Also a good place for the umpire to be. But what we'll see as the play develops a little more is that block threat will dissipate. The defender's going to run away from the blocker. Probably as a back judge looking at this action just in case anything negative happens from behind. Talking about the field judge, he's got these guys over here, but this is not what you would call POA, right? Not a relevant block to the play or the success of the play. So not something we want to let dominate our attention. However, we don't want to let a guy get kicked in the nether regions, punched in the gut or something, but we can officiate that kind of an action without staring at it. Really want to be looking over here, maybe just somewhere to try and contribute to the crew is what I'm trying to do at this point, like we talked about earlier. And then we'll let the play go, and it's all going to kind of just dissolve to its natural end without anything too big happening. But again, just a good play for us to discuss that pre-snap part and how that helps us visually with our visual mechanics throughout the course of the actual play. All right, guys, you're doing great. Way to hang in there through a pretty long explanation of a play. But again, I think that's a worthwhile pursuit for us to spend some time just digging into that. And I would encourage you, when you're watching film, to give yourself sections of time to go through that kind of a practice, because that's really the only way that you're going to grow, or any of us are going to grow in that kind of an area. Okay, so a little bit different tonight than we've done in our previous sessions, as we're still just trying to figure out best practices and meet everybody's needs. We're going to see if questions come in, we're going to try to address them throughout the duration of the session rather than just waiting till the end, and we'll just see how that goes. So I believe Brother Brandon Cruz is on here with me. So I didn't know if we had any questions from the chat that you felt like we could go ahead and tee up real quick.
Yeah, real quick, Daniel, good job covering the play. Real quick, talk about the tight end covered up and just reiterate, and you did before, but reiterate how you know he's covered up.
Yeah, so that's really hard, and I don't always know that. We're not looking at it from that perpendicular angle that the line of scrimmage officials have in that specific play. And again, the point of that was, what information can I find to leverage me, to put me in a position to be ready for what's next, right? And so in that particular play, if you remember, that number one key to the field judge side, that flanker, his foot was on a big line on the 40-yard line. Well, the slot guy, the number two receiver, he was an entire yard in front of that, leaning over that tick mark. I know where the ball's being snapped from. I know that I have two backs in the backfield and a quarterback. So now I know that number 2 has to be on the line because of that significant stagger, and I've already got 4 guys in the backfield. So I'm just using the alignment to come to that conclusion. I will say that that's not always possible, especially when we start getting into the blade of grass kind of deal. It can be really tough to tell, but in that specific play, it was very clear and obvious. Should be very clear and obvious that the number 2 receiver was on the line. And again, that's a piece of information that isn't transformational, right? It's not this big, huge, life-changing piece of news, but it's a little something that can get your mind prepared to do what it needs to do once the ball's snapped.
Well, and don't you think with they just had the left tackle over there uncovered, which is legal, but that kind of gives you a clue of what they're trying to do with the formation?
Yes, that's exactly right. Just piecing all of that stuff together.
Okay, very good. Very good.
All right, anything else? We'll go on to the next video. So I'm going to get real crazy here, and I'm going to start this video, and this video is going to have a poll attached to it. So bear with me here. I'm going to put up the poll question. Sorry. Now I'm going to put up the poll question. Go back to the video. So it'll play again, but what we're looking at here is the right guard and the right tight end. Our first poll question is relative to the right guard, and what we're looking at is just his block, and real simply, who should see that block, who's going to officiate that block. Okay, so I'm going to give it a few more seconds as the results are coming in. Oh, yeah, this is great. All right, I'm going to end the poll. So we've got a real even split between a lot of folks thinking that that's the umpire's block, and maybe they just chose that first, or they just feel like maybe there's a better place for the back judge to be, and then coming in second would be the umpire and the back judge. Okay, so let's go back to the video. All right, and then to the poll. All right, so now we're going to watch the tight ends block. And we're just asking the same question, and that is, who should be officiating this block? All right, going to end the poll. Okay, so a pretty overwhelming majority feel like this is the head linesman and the side judge on this block. And remember back to the right guard, we felt like we had a slight majority for the umpire, and then second was back judge and umpire. Okay, so now let's just break this play down and go through the kind of the whole deal like we did on the first play, except with a little bit more efficiency. Okay, so again, our first play, the offense is approaching the ball. We've gone through our pre-snap routine, and now we're starting to identify our initial keys and figuring out who we're going to start this play watching and what that information guides us towards. So as they first approach the ball, we'll see we've got a trip set down here. We've got a tight end, a wing back offset to the tight end, and our wide guy. We've got one receiver up here and then a back. But as we progress the video, our number one receiver down here to the bottom of the screen, which, by the way, this is, again, our side judge, headline judge, so line judge and field judge are up at the top. But he's going to, the side judge's initial key is going to go in motion to the top of the screen. So a couple of things have just happened. The side judge has now changed from the man who went in motion to now he's got this wing back here. The headline judge has transitioned from our wing back, and now he's on our tight end down here. The back judge has transitioned from our tight end down here, and he's now going to pick up this guy as he's getting ready to clear the tackle just before the snap. So a lot of moving parts right here, really close to an imminent snap. Not much going on up here yet. Again, the field judge is in a position with a very significant cushion between his initial key and the defender key. So he's going to be able to do what we talked about on the last play, and that's look through that tackle to help give him a sense of where the play, what kind of play it's going to be, where it's going to develop. Okay, so let's let the snap happen and see how this initially develops. Okay, so the ball is snapped. Let's go a touch further, and a couple of things have happened. From a side judge perspective, this tight end has fired out and blocked here. From a back judge perspective, let me just back this up about 1 second. We've got a chip right here, so it looks like he's blocking. We notice that the field judge stays stationary here. Leads me to believe he's reading run through his tackle up here, looking through his key. Awesome job. So let's go back to the play, let it progress another second or so. Okay, so now things have started to change specifically for the back judge. So again, we're looking through here. We're looking at our key, the initial key, to help figure out what play it's going to be. It feels, as the field judge is looking through his tackle, he probably sees this action developing. It's starting to feel a lot like a run. Remember on that first play, we talked about anticipating versus assuming. This is where that comes into play because nobody's necessarily downfield yet. We could have a play action, and if you see that the back judge's initial key is going to come out in this little flare, he's starting to do that after he chipped the defender, could potentially be a play action pass. And we have to be able to adapt in the middle of the play. So feels like a run play, but the back judge's guy is getting ready to flare out here. And we're going to run it about 1 more second. Okay, so now as a back judge, my guy chipped, and he's done this little flare pattern that we talked about, almost like he's a check down. However, a couple of things are going to allow me to get away from this guy almost already. I've probably, when he was about right here, decided he's worthless for me on this play. The first thing is this really significant cushion or bubble between him and a defender. The second thing is I should be feeling the guard, the tight end, and the tackle pushing down the field a little bit. I may not be watching them, but I have a sense of this pressure coming down the left middle of the field from my perspective, the right middle of the field from the offense's perspective. And so all of this is going to allow me to look back and see what's happening. And what I'm going to see is the ball has been handed off. It may have gotten back here before the ball was handed off, to be quite honest. And now we're starting to develop a stretch play around the edge. So where I would like to be is able to feel this play developing around the edge, and I'm going to start working to find a block from the inside out perspective. Most of us have heard that terminology a lot. If not, let me just explain it very briefly. As a back judge in the middle of the field, I want to find blocks in front of the ball carrier, working from the middle out towards the boundary, whichever side the play is coming towards. Okay, same thing for the other side. Whereas the deep wings are doing the exact opposite. They're going to look for blocks starting at the outside down here by the boundary. For for the most outside blocks working towards the middle in front of the runner. For me, on this play, I think this is a great place for the back judge's eyes to be. It's a second level block by the right guard. However, this is the umpire's initial key, and our umpires are really working on they're getting very proficient at catching these second level blocks. So I would also expect that right now this is going to grab the umpire's attention. I can't tell if he's looking here or not, but really this is where we'd want him to be also. So as a back judge, I'm kind of a secondary support here, but I'm going to tell you that if I'm able to make a call on this, I'm feeling very, very good about it. Field judge is still kind of looking through, allowing the play to develop. I don't know. Well, yeah, just looking through, waiting for the play to develop. Side judge is going to be able to stay on his tight end right now. Right now, the side judge should feel this developing as a stretch play here. The running back is looking to get off this tight end block. Now, that doesn't mean he's by himself. The referee is going to start on this right tackle. And as the play develops for him, transition as sorry, I missed my pause button here. The play develops, he'll transition from that block as it's a threat. And if he can get his eyes quick enough, come out to this block, this next block. That's a pretty fast transition, but I think that's what he's working to do. Brandon can certainly correct me later if that's incorrect, but that makes sense to me. But again, the side judge has a great view right here, unobstructed. He's been on this guy the whole play, so he's going to have a really informed opinion about whatever happens. And both of these blocks are going to be really critical. As we already saw, we're going to see some suspect action here by this guard, and then we end up, I believe, with a flag thrown on the tight end right here. Okay, so a good play just to talk about from our deep progression perspective and kind of identifying what threats we can be on. Talked a little bit about other positions as well. So we want to be 100% in our visual mechanics and fundamentals, but the reality is we also need to have a working knowledge of what the other guys on the field are working when it comes to blocks, because that's going to help inform where we should be blocking. Okay, so let's go ahead and move along to our next poll. Again, getting fancy, going to pull up the poll question simultaneous with the video. So here's the video. Stand by, working on it. Okay, here we go. Poll should be live now. And we're looking, let me pull the video back up. We're looking at the field judge, and we're going to see this right tackle, big A61 pull. We're going to see the field judge key come in and block, and we're just asking what's this look like for him. So I'm going to pull the video back up. Okay, so let's go to the poll, going to shut it down. wow, even split between these three options. And the options were as soon as he flashes in the open, because he's the widest guy, he shouldn't transition at all, or once his initial key is blocked. But A61's block is beginning as it's closer to the POA. All right, so again, just going to go through the play holistically and kind of talk about A61 and his relationship to the field judge's visual mechanics throughout that action. The offense has approached the ball. We see a balanced formation. We've got two receiver initial keys to the bottom, two to the top. On this play, I didn't mention in the poll the field judge and the line judge are to the top of our screen. So that would make this the back judge's key. This is the field judge's key, and down here the headline judge and side judge. Just before the snap, we're going to have a little motion action. And now that the initial number one receiver up there at the top has effectively switched positions with the slot receiver, the field judge and back judge have now effectively traded their initial keys. Just like we saw when we watched the play in the poll, we're going to have some interesting action between these three guys that we want to make sure we're all on the same page for. I'm going to let the video play for a couple of seconds or a second, and then we'll talk about what's developing here. So immediately as a back judge, I'm going to know that my key is coming to seal this guy, kind of a scoop block, scoop him off of the tackle, who is now pulling to get out in front of the ball carrier to be our lead blocker. So there's a lot of things that can happen there as a back judge, so I don't want to get off of this action. I'm going to watch him make this block. The field judge's key, the number one receiver, is going to come a little bit of an inside angle attempting to block. I believe this is B1 or B2, but anyhow, this defender. So what we asked in the poll question is, should the field judge, let it play here a little further, after he works this block, should he move his eyes over here at all, as we can see this big number 61 coming to block this little defender, because there is temptation, I think, as he flashes, for him to steal your gaze as a field judge. And we talked a little bit about the idea last play of working from the outside in, and this will effectively be our widest block. But in this case, what should be happening, let's go back a little bit, get rid of that. What should be happening is at this point, the line judge should sense this tackle pulling. This was the referee's tackle to begin with. Also, even though he's running out in space right now, we should see this block setting up. And so at this point, we're going to see that the field judge's key is going to commit what could be considered a suspect block, right? So, and if it's not suspect, there's certainly the potential for it to be suspect. So he really needs to fight the temptation to allow this to steal his attention and stay on his initial key right here and allow the line judge to work this block out in front of the ball carrier, as there's no threat to the ball carrier at this point in time. So kind of a trick question. One of the answer choices said, would he switch after? And I guess, technically this block is clear, his initial block, so he may come over here a little bit, but all of this is going to happen really quickly. And throughout this play, what the field judge is going to be doing is working his initial keys block. Again, the back judge's initial key will block here, and he'll just kind of stay with him and then maybe try to get outside. Excuse me, let me go back here. Maybe try to get outside once that block is over. But by the time that's happening, the play is coming to its natural conclusion. Okay, so following that play, Brandon and Tuta is also on here with us as well. Are there any questions that you think we can address as a group?
Yeah, so talk about, last play you talked about the back judge working second level, and that's the primary domain of the umpire most of the time. But let's say as a back judge you throw a flag in front of the umpire. How do you go about communicating that with him? Do you even communicate with him or her, or do you just go report it to the referee? So discuss that.
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me just address my visual mechanics on that play real quick, because if I didn't construe this in the video well enough, I want to make sure that I do now. I really expect to be on that block, and whether or not we determine that action was a foul or not, that's where I want my eyes to be, and I want to be able to make that decision. I will tell you that if, and I don't know, and I think, Brandon, your perspective here as a referee is really beneficial, because I'm just telling you, if I have that, and that's a takedown, for example, he turns those shoulders and he just annihilates that guy, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not going to communicate with the umpire much of anything. I'll try not to say any ugly things to him as I run by him for not having a flag down on this really obvious foul, but I'm just going to go report. If it's something like that, let's say as a back judge in that play, I chose to throw a flag on that action, I probably would, because I'm going to run right by the guy on my way to the referee. Before I give a preliminary, is just tell him what I had, because it's going to be really clear to me in that specific scenario. And again, just want to make sure that I'm speaking to that scenario and not extrapolating this out to all scenarios. But in that scenario, I probably would stop and tell him, look, I've got a offensive hold on your right guard here. But most of the time, I'm not going to do that. If I throw a flag, I'm going to be really confident in that flag. But at the same time, I don't want to just blow by him, because in that scenario, he may not know that I threw on his key, if that makes sense. And Tuta, these are the kind of decisions you used to make before you jumped ship and decided to be a referee. So I'd love to hear your input as well.
I totally echo what you're saying. I don't think when we throw a flag, we should be looking for confirmation from anyone. And to kind of flip it around, I would say if you're hitting the umpire in the head with your flag, he probably knows what you're throwing on. And if he has an issue with it, then he probably should say, hey, man, what you have hold on 67 or whatever the guy's number was. And then I would think it'll be incumbent upon him to initiate the conversation. But yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and that's really clarifying. In fact, hearing you say that, I think the only time I would feel compelled to mention it to the umpire is if I had this sense that he really didn't know that I threw on his key.
Well, let me add, I mean, we're talking about the biggest thing right now is game efficiency, administering the game with efficiency. Nobody wants to watch us conference when we don't need to. Certainly there's times where we need to conference. Sure. We have one flag on the ground and we come out with holding, and we're having a conference every time because, somebody's feelings get hurt because somebody else threw. I mean, come on. This is big time football. We're going to throw the flag. We'll throw the flag. We're confident. Report the foul. Let's move on. So we don't, I mean, you see the call, you make the call, and from a game efficiency perspective, there's certainly times to conference, but I don't think holding is one of them unless it's just a blatant miss.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Really good. Okay, anything else before we move on to the next play?
No, I think we're good to go, Daniel. Roll on.
Wait, hold 1 second. Hold 1 second.
Okay.
There was question about on the last play we looked at, not play 2. I think play 3 with the BYU and USC play. Sure. There were questions about switching and motions and how do you determine when to switch and things like that in terms of I'm assuming they're talking about at the snap or before the snap. So just talk about that, I guess.
Okay, so whenever we had that motion on that play, we end up with a really, really tight space space between the two guys. And so I think, if I remember correctly, the field judge and the back judge effectively just switched their key when that motion happened. I think that's what it was. And so those guys are really close together. And the reality is, as a back judge, for my initial key, I'm watching both of those guys just to decide what they're going to do. When I'm sharing that key, those two guys with the deep wing, I know that he's got the same look as I do, meaning he can tell the distance between them. So if we have a press situation, I'm very comfortable with the idea that I have the inside guy and he has the outside guy, even if they're close together, because we both have that kind of perpendicular view. It changes a little bit when we're talking about sharing those two guys with a short wing. However, again, we're really watching both of those guys, because if my guy shoots to the outside and his guy goes to the inside, we're going to have almost an instantaneous transition or switch there. So even though I'm saying that the big tight end guy who was in motion was the back judge's key, initial key, it just worked out that he went and committed a block that is right in my field of vision and really appropriate for my visual mechanics. If he would have shot outside and number A21 would have come inside, then we would have had a really quick switch. So it's kind of, there's an element of allowing them to tell us where they're going to go, combined with an element of knowing who we're starting with, if that's not too cloudy.
No, you covered that well. You covered that well. Very good. Next play.
Okay, here we go. Next play. So offense has approached the ball. We've got twins formation to the bottom of the screen, a single receiver to the top of the screen, and a couple of backs. We'll let this play develop, but one thing I want to mention that we have mentioned on previous plays is just a lot of space for everybody, right? All three of our deep folks have plenty of opportunity to take a peek into tackle, to give them a tip, just an idea of what kind of play is coming. Wanted to include this play because it's one that presents as something and turns into something else. So immediately we're going to see a pocket form around the quarterback. We're going to have pass blocking action here and here. We've got our receivers start to run route. So everything that's being communicated to us is a pass play. But if you watch the left guard's action, we could say that this is potentially an RPO, but what I really think it is a designed run, because they're going to more of a draw than an RPO, because the left guard is going to release all on his own downfield looking for someone to block. So one of those plays that really reinforces the idea that we need to be able to shift our mindset in the play. So at this point, as a back judge, I'm looking in here, my guy's got so much space, and he's kind of already starting to stalk block a little bit. If we watch this, rewind this a touch, like not a lot going on here at all. Just a very casual body action. So something isn't right about this pass play that's presenting it to me. And because this is so spread out, there's a really good chance that I'm going to catch this guy in my peripheral. And this is one of those second level blocks that I'd love to be able to get over here and help on. Now, he's not going to end up blocking anybody, but the point is, and you can tell right now that the umpire is tracking this all the way. But just because of the absence of other action around here, this is a great place for the back judge to be, even though nothing really materializes. Still a really good place. Our deep official to the top is going to work this block, and not much is going to happen here. Again, I just wanted to give us a play where that starts like something, but ultimately is something else. And I think this is just a QB draw when you break it down. But we need to be practice that habit of adjusting mid-play to what the play is actually evolving into. Okay, let's go to another poll question. All right, going to put the question up first this time. See, I'm learning. And the video is on its way. So we're watching this tight end that I circled here, and this play is going to break down. The quarterback is going to end up scrambling. He's going to block back towards his goal line. We're just wondering who's in the best position to officiate this block right now. Watch it one more time. All right, we're going to end the poll. Okay, so we ended up with about half of us feeling like this is the back judge's responsibility, and then in second place is the referee. Let's break down this film, or this play rather, pretty quickly. Okay, so again, the offense has approached the ball. We have another balanced formation with our side judge and head line judge down here. We've got a tight end for the back judge lined up right here. And of course, our field judge up here at the top. Want to again draw our attention to this expansive distance between our deep wings' initial offensive key and their defenders. Give you the opportunity to again to take that peek inside and start to make a determination about what kind of play this is going to be. As we let the play develop, this is going to present very clearly like a pass play, right? We've got guys running routes as a back judge. My tight end is going to swim through his defender and try to break his route off to the outside. All this looks like a pass play, and I think it is a design pass play. What we'll see is the quarterback is going to feel this blitzing linebacker rushing free, and he's going to bail on the play out of a sense of self-preservation. So now as the quarterback and this check down receiver start to, sorry guys, missed my pause button again, start to come around the right end, he's going to think about maybe giving him the ball, but as this defender kind of covers that up, he ultimately decides to run. At this point, I don't know that we've transitioned from a pass play to a run play. However, we probably have a sense that that potential is coming. Right here, where this guy who was a check down receiver has now decided to block, our field judge's key is now blocking. It's become very clear that we are now in a running play, and we've got to figure out the best blocks for us to be looking at. I think the field judge is doing a good job of not focusing on this, but rather understanding that this isn't really a relevant block. Probably has his eyes now down on this block. Probably the line judge is on this block as well. For the back judge, we've been watching number 87. This whole play really haven't had an impetus for us to change or switch or transition. Rather, we've stayed with him. So he's the one from our poll question who is going to blow up this trailing defender right here back towards his own goal line, or at least block him. So as a back judge, I feel really confident that I've stayed with my key the whole way, and I would have a great look at this block. Now we have to consider these guys back here are on the 5-6 yard line, so that means I'm behind them, probably close to the goal line. So I've got a long way to look here, 32 to 3 yards to be exact, if I'm not deeper in the end zone. And there's a little bit of traffic in here. Having said that, I still would hold myself to a standard where I expect to be able to have eyes on this block. Would also say that the referee is back here with eyes on the quarterback, certainly has a great opportunity to officiate this block. So just another play that presents as one thing, turns into something else, and has a little bit of a tricky block for us to officiate. All right, folks, man, you guys are doing a great job. Thanks so much for hanging with us. We've got one more play we're going to show. It's going to have no poll associated with this, just the last play of the evening, and then we'll finish up with any questions and just make some closing comments. Again, just appreciate you guys hanging with us this evening. All right, so offense has approached the ball. You'll see that we started out with trips up here to the top. By the way, the head line judge and side judge are up here, so our line judge and field judge are down at the bottom of the screen. Immediately going to motion into a balanced formation. So at this point, we know our back judge is here. Field judge, line judge is in the backfield. Headline judge on number 2, and then the side judge up here. We're going to let the play run and see what we're dealing with. Real quick, just again, a lot of space here, a lot of time to make decisions. Back judge has a really clear view of his key. Okay, so immediately we're going to see the pocket form around the quarterback. We're going to see our receivers out in routes, and it's a pass play, and I know what you're thinking. Daniel, this is a run mechanic training session. What are we doing looking at pass plays? But hold on, because we're going to have a really fast completion, and the receivers will get into a blocking situation. So this play is relevant, I promise. All right, but real quick, something I just thought about, I wanted to share with you that you may or may not find useful at all, really for the back judges. But if you're anything like me, I've had a tremendously difficult time officiating things in the middle, what we call the wash, whenever we have crossing routes, drag routes, rub routes, whatever you want to call them, and there's collisions. It's always just looked like a mass of bodies for me. And I used to really struggle trying to figure out who initiated the contact. Was the defender moving into the receiver, or did the receiver go find him and pick him? So one of the things I started doing a couple of years ago was identifying my linebackers in the middle by number. So, for example, just knowing the number of this guy, and really this guy in this situation, because this is my key. So when I'm thinking about a crossing or a drag route, this is the guy I would want to know his number for, and not really that one. I would know his number as well, but for a different reason, right? Because he's probably, if we stay in man, he's the guy covering my guy. But in terms of this process, I really want to know his number as well. Because if my initial key starts running a route towards the middle of the field, like so right now I'm thinking about it, what I started doing a few years ago was taking my eyes off of him, which is totally appropriate as no one's riding him anyway, and putting my eyes right here on my linebacker, right? So now I'm officiating him, and I'm staying in this kind of visual place until he clears him. And that action right there that we just passed is a great example of why the defender, everything works out great here. The defender takes a step up and the receiver tries to move him, but it could really, really easily look like a receiver going and trying to pick him if there's a collision there. So I know we're not talking about OPI tonight, but that's a tool that I've used that this play just made me think about as I was watching it. to help officiate that aspect of OPI much better. It was a game changer for me. So if that's helpful for you, great. If not, sorry to have wasted your time. All right, so back to the play and our purpose for this session. Real quick completion over here to the left flat to the running back at the 20-yard line by the line of scrimmage. And so immediately we're going to get into a blocking situation. Right now it's effectively a run play. At this point, looking at from the back judge perspective, this body language right here, that was supposed to be an arrow and it went awry, and so I made it a circle, trying to save the drawing. I don't think that helped. Sorry about that. So this body language right here tells me that the pass is completed. If I didn't feel this as I was officiating my initial key, this right here is going to tell me that my attention needs to go elsewhere. So with all of this space, right, this space helps you visually because it's not a massive body. So with all of this space, I'm going to feel really comfortable from here being able to tell that the ball's been caught back here. As a field judge, I think you're going to have a great sense looking through your initial key to know that the ball's been caught. Side judge, you may be a little bit later to the party, but you will get there. Going to let the play progress a little bit further, and immediately almost the field judge is going to come up with a block to officiate that's going to be a really, really relevant block. We know that this ball was caught back here. He's clearly trying to get to the boundary to run down the sideline. So this is a really important block that's going to take the field judge's attention, appropriately so. Now, as a back judge, remember we talked a few plays about this idea of working mechanically inside out. So I'm going to start looking for someone to officiate, a block to officiate. Look, there's no blocking going on right here. Nothing is presenting itself. There's nothing at the second level. And this is probably too far inside for as far wide as the ball was caught. We're already at the numbers. So the only place for me to go, I think logically, is to this player in the white uniform. As we progress the play just a little bit more, you're going to see him running with some pretty serious intensity, and he's running back towards his own goal line. So that's an indicator for us. Anytime we have a teammate player who's clearly on a mission running back towards his own goal line, that's something we need to be paying attention to because a block is setting up that has the potential to be a foul of some sort. So we're going to go back just a touch. So right now, as a back judge, I want to have my eyes here. Field judge would be here. Line judge ball carrier is being threatened, so may have his attention here. Or to let the play go. Oh, sorry, guys. We're going to let the play go, and he's going to come back and block with pretty serious aggression in the open field. And when we break this down the way we did, it may seem like an easy play, but when we get to this point, there's a lot of stuff going on. We've got a ball carrier, we've got a block here, we've got these guys as distractors, and then we've got this really critical block in the middle of all of it. So one that we want to get used to seeing on video and working through the mechanical, our visual mechanic process that we've done a lot tonight. To give us the best opportunity to see this block and make a decision on it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was our last play of the evening. Again, I appreciate everybody just staying with us. That was a little bit longer than I was intending. I hope that there was something of value that was mentioned that you can use to help just kind of improve your practice. That's really what this is about, like we talked about at the beginning. Before we say goodnight, just want to check in with Brandon and Tuta one more time and see if we picked up any questions from the chat, anything we want to address collectively.
Yeah, we've got some good questions like always. So appreciate the interactiveness from the audience. All right, Daniel, since, talk about RPO, since line play is so good at disguising run pass blocking, what are any type of subtle indicators that you can use to help decipher, early in the play relative to your run pass read?
Oh yeah, that's a really great question. I don't know that there is any subtle indicators. And again, Tuta, jump in here, but because the play is designed to do all of the things, right? It's designed to. There's some that are designed to be a zone read handoff, designed to be a dump off, in the first 5 yards, designed to have the quarterback ultimately choose if he wants to throw and run. So the linemen are putting themselves in a position to both run block and pass block legally. So I don't know if there's anything they do that tip their hand one way or the other, because really it's designed to allow them to do both things. I think what you really need to do when you're working a team that's going to do a lot of RPO, I think you need to know that going into the game and spend some time that week watching film from that team. That will be really helpful for you, because now you're in the mindset to understand that, like we talked about way back on that first play, what is presented to you may not be what is actually going to happen. So you're looking for those pieces of information you can leverage to get down that thought pathway quicker. However, this is a team that's going to do a lot of RPO, so you need to do it with a grain of salt, understanding that what you're seeing may not be what the play evolves to be, which I don't think is a whole lot of help relative to the question that was asked. But it's just one of those things. And man, I will tell you, when the RPO first became really prevalent, I really struggled with that kind of thing, being able to, because it affects the way we backpedal, it affects where our eyes go, it affects a lot of different things in terms of how we officiate. So I think just by working a lot of those plays on film for that team that's coming up, and just being prepared, having that understanding, like we're going to see a lot of RPO, is the best thing you can do. I don't know if Tuta, you have anything to add to that or anything different.
I honestly have nothing intelligent to say about that. I think you covered it well.
Okay. Anything else, Brandon?
No, you know what? We've got so there was a question about the last play, the result of that in terms of, the evaluation for blindside block. And why don't we just leave that as a teaser, because we're going to break down blindside block in the future.
Perfect.
With that said, Daniel, close us out. You were awesome. You were a great. What was the word, Tuta? Give us the word from last night.
Orator.
Yeah. Okay.
Orator, orator, whatever have you. You say that
something
word.
like that. Daniel, close us out. Thank you.
Yeah, man, that was way too much buildup. No, again, just want to thank everybody for just kind of engaging in this process with us. It's been a lot of fun. The last thing I would tell you is that I want to leave you with an action item, right? So how do we get better at working on our visual mechanics, and how do we grow in that area? And it's one of those things that the answer is really easy, but doing it's not necessarily easy. It just takes a lot of time and a lot of effort put into when you're evaluating film in the off season, like right now, that you're willing to go through that really tedious process that we went through that first play on a regular basis, so it can become habitual and intuitive for you. And then the other piece of it is it's about self-awareness, so that when you are breaking your film down throughout the course of the year, you're self-aware and honest enough with yourself to say, you know what, I was looking here and I probably should have been looking here, or I was looking in a great place. So those are the only two action items I would give you to try to kind of grow in this area. But I would, again, just conclude with the idea that if you can become super proficient here, you've got a great future in this business. So that's all I've got. Have a great night, a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you Sunday at noon Central Time with an awesome video-based rules session. Have a good night.